Hi, welcome to another episode of the Trezor Talks. My name is Josef Tětek. I run Trezor Academy, a non-profit educational program mostly for Africa and South America for people to learn about Bitcoin. And today with me in the studio, in the Trezor studio, is Mr. Okin from Namibia. And Okin has been very helpful in running the program in his country, in Namibia. Welcome, Okin.
Thank you very much for having me, Joseph. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm doing great, actually, because you accepted the invitation to come here to Prague, help me out with the Trezor Academy program. And I'm really grateful we have this chance to sit down here with you and learn a bit more about Bitcoin adoption in Namibia and Africa. Mm-hmm. So maybe for those of us who don't know much about your country, about Namibia, tell us a little bit about how it is, how it looks.
Okay, well, Namibia is a country in the southern part of Africa. It's on the west coast, so you'll find it in between Angola, like right underneath Angola, right above South Africa. It is sandwiched in between there. We're a very desert-oriented country, meaning that we literally have the Namib Desert running throughout most of our country. It's very, very, very hot. I can say that our sun shines for about 360 days out of the year.
Oh.
Yeah, it's always shining. Even when it's raining, it's shining. It's a very stable country. We've been rated one of the most safe and stable countries in the entire SADC region. That's the Southern African Development Community region, which consists of about, I think, 6 to 12 countries. I can't remember the exact figure. It's about 3 million people in the entire country. So, and that is of our latest census from last year or the beginning of this year. So there's 3 million people in Namibia as a population, yet the size of the country is extremely huge. So we are the second least populated place on earth after Inner Mongolia. They're the first, but they're a lot smaller than we are. So that also adds to it. But yeah, we're basically a tourist destination. A lot of people come to Namibia on adventure tourism and, of course, animal tourism, as we have the Big Five. We've got the largest cheetah population in the world, conservation-wise. There's a good reason to come to Namibia.
Yeah, that sounds good. And I'll be sure to visit after the Adopting Bitcoin in January.
I'm looking forward to that.
And we have talked previously about the unemployment rate or... you said there's no official published figures, but how does it look in terms of employment opportunities?
Oh, that's a great question. So we haven't gotten those figures. This is actually our election month. So in about 7 days, today's the 20th, in 7 days, everybody goes to the polls and we elect our new president and our new government. Because of that, we thought that we would get those figures in this election year of what is the unemployment rate, the official unemployment rate. They have not released those figures. But by just being around in Namibia, seeing how much unemployment has increased, looking at the closing of shops, looking at places that have been in existence for longer than I've been alive, closing up shop and everybody going unemployed, I would guess it's higher than 40%. I would say it's, and the problem with this at the same time is we have a young generation coming up, whereas the generation that just finished studying and just left university, all of them can't get jobs. Most of them cannot get jobs. They're unemployable. So what the problem is there is the ones that are coming now, going into university, what are they studying? Because if they're studying anything like what the other guys were, they'll be unemployed in 4 to 5 years as well.
All right, yeah. So maybe let's move on to Bitcoin in Namibia. So how would you characterize Bitcoin perception and adoption in your country?
Okay, well, Bitcoin has had a rough start in my country. Like most countries, there were scammers around, and scammers are like, hey, give me your money, I'll buy Bitcoin for you, or I'll do what, I'll trade the Bitcoin for you. And at the end of the day, what that results in is people losing money and blaming Bitcoin, saying, I got scammed by Bitcoin. Whereas what actually happened is you got scammed by a scammer. And that was the perception for a long time is, no, this is a scam from somewhere in Europe or America or whatever that they're looking for Africans to put money into and, take the money away. So that was the initial perception. People weren't really looking at anything of trying to adopt Bitcoin. But as they started seeing proof of work, seeing the conversation, seeing people actually spend Bitcoin within Namibia, that perception has slowly but surely started to come around.
And how easy is it to get Bitcoin in the country? Are there Bitcoin ATMs, Bitcoin exchanges? Is there peer-to-peer economy going on?
Well, I'd say that kind of depends on your. It depends on how much you really want the Bitcoin. So there's no exchanges in Namibia as of yet. We do not have any Bitcoin exchanges, and our Virtual Assets Act makes it very difficult for foreigners to open exchanges inside Namibia. You have to do things like lifestyle audits and all these things that nobody wants to go through just to open an exchange in a country with 3 million people. Yeah. So that you also got to look at what is your actual rate of return from where you're going to go in and deploy that capital. We do, however, have on and off ramps. We have the guy that got me into Bitcoin actually owns the first on-off ramp of Namibia, whereby they don't actually hold custody of your Bitcoin at all. So when you buy, you need to put in your Bitcoin address and they literally send the Bitcoin directly to you from your purchase. So they don't ever hold that for you. But technically right now we had a Bitcoin ATM, but the guy didn't know what he was doing, and he hooked it up to his Coinbase account. And of course, everybody buying through your Coinbase account starts becoming a problem when you look at central bank regulations and things like that. So that is currently up for sale. Last I heard, the Bitcoin ATM is, and the whole business itself is up for sale. And then with EasySats, we had the Azteco vouchers that we brought in so that people were able to purchase Bitcoin for as little as 20 Namibian dollars or 20 Rand. And then, of course, you have Vexel, which I always advise people to use because you can always put up your own buy on and sell offers with your own rates. So everybody actually gets what they would deem fair in that exchange.
Right, and peer-to-peer in Namibia, like it's legal. There's no problem with that. Like
so our Virtual Assets Act actually was written in conjunction with Bitcoiners. Bitcoiners were at the table while discussing the Virtual Assets Act. So it's actually very Bitcoin friendly in the sense that there's no capital gains tax on Bitcoin in Namibia. You don't get taxed on mining, and peer-to-peer transactions have no limits. So if I want to purchase through an on-off ramp, right, and it's above 10,000 Namibian dollars, I would have to be KYC'd. They'd have to take all my details. EasySats, we don't sell that high because we're here for the everyday laborer. But if you do peer-to-peer, I can sell you $1 million. If I have $1 million in Bitcoin and you have $1 million to give me, we can do that transaction. And it's completely legal, right? A lot of people will ask, where is the taxable event then? In Namibia, we get taxed almost on everything else, including mobile airtime. So as soon as you have that cash, that gets taxed. There are many taxable events that you can go through for them not to have to put capital gains tax in addition on top of the Bitcoin.
Yeah, that sounds great. So you can do large amount peer-to-peer transaction in cash for Bitcoin. There's
a house for Bitcoin. It's up to you guys as long as you change the...
Buy a house for Bitcoin. There is no like reporting requirements.
No, you'd still have to, because again, the house will change ownership.
Yeah.
So you still have to do all the things that you normally would have to, but how the house was paid for and purchased, you could do in Bitcoin. I mean, if you want to sell me a house for cows, we could do that, but we'd still have to go to the registrar's office and do all of the rest of those things.
Yeah, that's really amazing. So Vexel and peer-to-peer economy can really pick up over there because, it's you're not doing anything wrong from the government's perspective.
Not at all, and that's why I do like telling people use things like Vexel. It is the government has already said this is allowed. So now it's just about you utilizing the tools that have been put in front of you to be able to do this in a safe manner as well. You know, as you wouldn't want to just go up to a stranger and be like, hey, I've got Bitcoin. They're going to probably take you and be like, okay, you're going to give us that Bitcoin at some point. But what you would want to do is try to keep it as secure and safe. Use tools that keep you synonymous until you want to reveal who you are, like Vexel. And I think those type of tools go a long way in a place like Namibia.
Yeah, beautiful. So tell us a little bit about what does the community look like in terms of activities? Are there meetups? Is there a merchant adoption? How does that look like?
Yeah, so when I started in Bitcoin a few years ago, there were no meetups at all. So I started with meetups. I went to an establishment which was called the Wolf Shack. They were the first establishment in Namibia to publicly accept Bitcoin. And I went to them and I said, look, what's the day with your weakest sales? They said Thursdays. I was like, what's the cheapest stuff on your menu? I said, burger and beer. I said, okay, I'll sit here every Thursday and argue with people from lunchtime till you guys close about Bitcoin. if you allow me to do a Bitcoin burgers and beer special where a burger and beer combo can be paid for in Bitcoin, I will pay for that. I'll pay you the Bitcoin. And I'll argue with people to show them that Bitcoin can be used as money by paying for their drinks and food. And then that's how we started Bitcoin Burgers and Beers at the Wolf Shack about 3 years ago. After about 2 months of that, the Wolf Shack decided everything on their menu will be accepted for Bitcoin, not just burgers and beers. We even had the central bank come through, funny enough, to come find out what am I doing at this place? How are they accepting the Bitcoin? The central bankers were buying burgers and beers over 6,000 Rand. So like, you know, it's all about people also seeing what's in front of them. So that was when we started the meetups. From there, I moved on to try and get other places to accept Bitcoin. But again, we already at this point in time, we're still fighting with the whole scammers and Bitcoin's a scam and what. So I went through maybe 10 different establishments that were just like, no, thank you. Then I found a place that does paintball. You know, they do paintball. They rent out their establishment for a lot of talks and things, and they accepted Bitcoin as well. So now it's growing slowly but surely. Now we've got people that do Pilates, an overland rental for motorcycles. There's still a lot of work to be done, but we're getting there.
Yeah, and we can probably find those places on BTC Map, I guess.
They are all on BTC Map. I had a meeting 2 days ago with a man that owns a lot of car washes. I mean, a lot. And he wants to now start accepting. I know some architects, I know builders. So they are, the adoption's moved up, just not in establishment-wise as much as we probably
and
like.
you come from like an artistic background,
Correct.
right? And you were telling me before how we need to onboard the artists,
Yes.
and that's actually what has been happening in Namibia in one of the townships you said.
Correct.
Yeah, so describe a little bit about that.
So when I threw the first Trezor Academy in Namibia, we threw it at CC Hub, which is a co-creation space. And I had some creatives came through. I didn't know that the guys were creatives. A few rappers were there, and they went through the entire session. At the end of it, they created Bitcoin Studio in a township called Karatura. It's the township of the capital city. And they through doing this started getting people onto Noster and Wave Lake to actually put their music up on Wave Lake. And one of these artists, Lamek, he decided he was going to sell physical copies of his CD via Vexel. And I think he tweeted out something like he sold 60 copies or something. And I was like, wow. Now you sold 60 copies of a physical CD. Most people don't even have CD-ROMs anymore. But you sold that physical copy, 60 of them, and you sold them for Bitcoin.
Yeah.
He's also got a campaign up on Geezer page. So it's just to say that people, as they get the knowledge, are able to move forward and start creating for themselves.
Yeah. And I got the impression that Namibians are really good musicians because you've been part of a hip hop band. Tell us like what was the name of the band? Because I was surprised like with the quality of that.
Yeah, so the band's name is Black Vulcanite. So it's basically a hip hop poetry group. The reason we created it was just, to bring about the realization that as Africans, we have a lot to offer in spaces that we never thought we belonged or were told we didn't belong. And in these conversations with each other as Black Vulcanite members, we were like, how do we get people to understand the power of your mind and what it holds and what else can come? Like if you could think about sci-fi from the context of an African country instead of from Europe or America, what would it look like?
Yeah.
If you would think about space travel from that context, what would it look like? And then what would it sound like if we rapped about it? And that's kind of a lot of the things and themes that came from Black Vulcanite.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that music. And in terms of your project, EasySats, what do you do there?
Okay, so EasySats for me was spawned out of a need to firstly make sure Namibians don't get scammed, right? By scammers around Bitcoin, by informing people, showing them public proof of work to say, hey, this is how you buy Bitcoin. This is how you buy your mobile airtime with Bitcoin. This is how you can buy a beer. Like, this is how you spend your Bitcoin. This is how you can earn your Bitcoin. All of those things I then brought together in EasySats to say, okay, first we're going to start by showing people that it's not a scam and how not to get scammed. Then what we're going to do is show them how to earn, how to safely store, and how to do all of the things that you're supposed to be able to do with Bitcoin, even without me being there. to say even if EasySats stops existing tomorrow and Okin's no longer here, you can still use your Bitcoin. So that was my first goal with EasySats. Then from there, we moved to being like, I didn't want my country to be left behind. This is literally a race that anybody can participate in, and all they have to do is participate. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no, I need to go pay a broker, I have to ask Elon Musk, or I have to ask my government. I can just start doing this. And in doing it, I can start learning. So for me, that was a very big driving force to make sure that Namibia doesn't have to play catch up to South Africa or to, I haven't achieved that fully, but there's still other countries where people aren't talking about Bitcoin, where people aren't educating people about Bitcoin. So for me, EasySats was the first driving force, was to help make sure we can educate people on the opportunities in front of them and the tools that they can utilize to take advantage of those opportunities.
Yeah, so I have a question related to that. You studied abroad, right?
Yes.
In China, and you're like obviously very skilled. And so some people might ask, why don't you just move to maybe a place where there's more opportunities for you? Why do you want to focus on proper Bitcoin adoption in Namibia? What drives you?
Yeah, so I have had the opportunity to move out of my country before. Even like as you said, when I was studying in China, guys were like, "Why are you going home? Stay here, bro. We're making money." Right?
Yeah.
My thing was, I'm not here to make your country better. Your country is your country. You're here to make your country better. I need to make my country better, because if you kick me out of your country, where do I go? To a country that's worse? Then I left it. That doesn't work for me. So for me, the driving force was always, as a Namibian, I need to make sure my country prospers in some way, that people will want to come back one day and say, hey, I went out to go get knowledge, not to go and just live a better life, but I came back to make sure we all can live a better life. So again, for me, the driving force is seeing Namibians actually prosperous, making sure that even if I don't have any kids, but if I had a child one day, Namibia would already be at a place that this person would be able to move forward with, right? And I truly believe that fixing the monetary problems in Namibia with something like Bitcoin, and Bitcoin, all the tools, because not just Bitcoin, the money. There's Bitcoin tools. You've got Bitcoin mining that helps put up electrical mini grids, right? Because they are the buyer of first and last resort. These things are able then to electrify villages. This is not on the cards in another way. We don't have another way to do this. But if you implement Bitcoin mining, it pays for that mini grid to be there and then earns for the people around. So for me, it's more a thing of, why wouldn't you want to see your country prosper if you could help do it?
Yeah.
And I know I can help. So it's a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, beautiful. So what does work in terms of orange pilling newcomers in Namibia? How do you approach it? And what like from your experience, what's the most effective way of explaining Bitcoin, showcasing Bitcoin?
Okay. Well, great question. Firstly, that's a great question. For me, it always starts with a conversation. There's no point in me coming to you and speaking about decentralization and state capture and all of this when it just flies over your head. You've never thought about those terms. Yeah. You don't care about those terms. What do you care about? That's the first thing I need to find out. How I find that out is a conversation. So if I'm speaking to a vendor, somebody that owns an establishment, the first thing I ask them is, how do you feel about those point of sale fees? Nobody likes a point of sale machine they have to pay rent on. And if I pay you 100, they only get 98 because the point of sale machines people or the bank of them also take another fee. And then I tell you, your cell phone is a point of sale machine and I'll pay it to you right now. I'll give you the whole thing in Bitcoin and there will be no fee for you. Mm-hmm. That's a conversation point. So I look at like pain points for people. Do you have a bank account? Oh, you don't have a bank account? Oh, what if I told you that you don't need one, but that cell phone in your hand can buy you airtime as if you had a bank account? What if you could use your cell phone like a bank account? So it's all about a conversation with the people to find out what is paining them. And if I can't get it through the paining them thing, they're probably not ready to have the Bitcoin conversation. Mm-hmm. Because not everybody's ready to have that conversation when you want to have it with them. I've had friends that it took 4 years. Last year, now they're like, oh, okay, can I get what you were saying? I want to start buying Bitcoin. The guy that tried to get me in Bitcoin from 2012, when I wasn't listening, I only joined in 2019. And I was like, oh, use case. Makes sense to me. That's 7 years of my life I could have been stacking Bitcoin. But in hindsight, I understand I was not ready to have that conversation till I was ready. And that's why they say you get Bitcoin at the price that you deserve.
Yeah, and at your own pace. And yeah, that's why even the term orange pilling, sometimes it seems like we need to impose Bitcoin on people.
I was about to say.
Yeah.
So I had this conversation actually with Santosh from Student of Bitcoin. And orange pilling is actually the wrong term. Because you cannot orange pill somebody. They have to orange pill themselves after. So we can introduce people to Bitcoin. We can help move them along, the educational path. But only they can orange pill themselves to really be like, aha, Bitcoin. We can't make them get that aha moment.
Yeah, and so in terms of pain points that Bitcoin can perhaps address, how easy is it to open a bank account in Namibia? And how easy is it to get money in and out of the country?
I'm loving all of these questions right now, Joseph. So how easy is it to open a bank account? They are trying to make it a lot easier, right? Namibia isn't it's not that most of our people are unbanked. A good amount of our people are banked. Mm-hmm. It's just how are they banked, right? Like you can go to the post office and open a post office account, right? But again, that's a custodial account with that post office. There's a lot of things that go into it. So to open a bank account, they're trying to make it easier, but one of the biggest barriers is you need a street address. Now, a lot of people live on streets, but does the street have a name? If you're living in the village, does the village, that street that you're living on in the village have a name? If it does not, how do you open that bank account without a residential address? You cannot, okay? They won't allow you to. So for a lot of people, that option's been taken from them. They cannot open a bank account because of where they live. Just because of where you live, not having a street name, you can't open a bank account to transact and pay your taxes. Okay? But what you can do is you can have a Bitcoin wallet. Mm-hmm. You can accept and send and receive Bitcoin. So this is where that pain point for people comes in, where they say, hey, look, man, I wanna be able to save, but I can't get a bank account. I want to be able to do that. I can't get a bank account. How would I go about these things? So that is a very big pain point, and that I think Bitcoin does solve. But another thing is moving money in and out of Namibia. In September, beginning of September, I think was it called the CMA, or there was some implementation in SADC countries that EFTs, like if I do an electronic bank transfer from my bank account to yours that would normally work from Namibia to South African bank accounts or Zimbabwe, Botswana, whatever, have stopped. That has ceased to be in existence. You can no longer do that, right? Which means that every transaction that happens across border is now a Forex transaction, which incurs Forex funds or fees. Now, there's a lot of problems with this. I'll give you a simple one, Bitcoin exchanges. If I have an account in South Africa at a Bitcoin exchange, before what would happen is if I sell my Bitcoin out, I would withdraw that funds as an EFT payment from the exchange to my Namibian bank account. I'm not allowed to do that anymore. As soon as this came into effect, all Namibian bank accounts were shut off from being able to withdraw because it's not a Forex transaction. For that, you have to go through a whole other thing, right?
Yeah.
So literally, by implementing that, they cut off the ability of cross-border transfers. Why would they do that? Because they want to introduce another system, CBDCs. It's the easiest way for them to then be like, oh, don't use Bitcoin, use our CBDC because it's government-backed, and then try and push that onto the public to say, why trust who you don't know who Satoshi was? You know me, trust me. Bro, you stole from me last week, you know what I mean? So why would I do that? But people will.
So there is a real push of CBDCs in South Africa, Namibia.
In Africa, in general. You have to remember, Bitcoin is freedom money. You're talking about a continent that hasn't had freedom of determination when it comes to finances and things like the IMF, World Bank, Bank of International, all these guys have been dictating for the longest time how all of these countries should or should not behave to be able to even try and get a grant. You know what I mean? Right. So that is not freedom money. If you're going to give those people the ability to shut off your CB, because that's what they can do. You can still get paid. You just can't spend your money because we don't like what you said. We don't like what party you represent. We don't like the color of your skin. We don't like your hair. I don't like the way you breathe. Now I'm going to shut off your money. All of that is possible if I control how to shut off your money, right? So now I'm able to do this cross-border. That is a problem that everybody should be thinking about in SADC or in Africa or the world to say, why would I give you ultimate control over the value I have created? That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. So, and in terms of your opinion, because there's a strong like presence of like Chinese investors and the CCP investing in African countries, who, from your opinion, is behind the CBDC push in Africa? Is it more like China or IMF, World Bank, BIS?
IMF. If it was up to me, I'd say it's the IMF. And why would it be the IMF? El Salvador. Yeah. They don't want other countries doing what El Salvador and Bhutan did. Bhutan didn't even tell anybody what they were doing. They just mined. They were like, bro, we're just gonna mine. We don't have to tell you. So that is, for me, the clear as day. The only people that would want this bad is the IMF, so that they can dictate to you how your policy should go with your central bank digital currency. Otherwise, they won't give you other things. And that is literally as I see it.
Right. So do you think it's going to get actually implemented in Namibia, South Africa, the CBDC?
Yes.
Okay.
I think South Africa definitely. I really do think they're going to put out a CBDC. And it's just from my perspective, because of the way that their legislation's written, how they even speak about Bitcoin from a legislative standpoint is very, it's not a good way to look at it. But again, if you could control all of what Bitcoin's, the wording that you could use with Bitcoin. You remember, like, we have things that are DINO, right? Decentralized in name only. Yeah. But people still believe they're decentralized just because the word's there. They have not checked to see what makes it decentralized, none of that. So if a banking institution and the government comes to you and says, hey guys, we're going to make sure that, your currency, inflation doesn't go that way. We're going to introduce this digital thing. It's better than Bitcoin. Why? Because you know us and we're one of you. And whatever they're going to use as that means, they're going to get people to use that CBDC. Here's the problem. Everywhere where a CBDC has been implemented, what has happened?
Well, people don't use it, actually.
It's failed. It's a failed experiment, right? So why would you utilize a failed experiment that has failed in every country? In Nigeria, in China, it's failed. Bro, it's failed everywhere. You think it's going to work in Namibia? That's my funny thing. They think it's going to work in Namibia for some reason. What would be that factor? I don't see it, except for making more people poor. Because remember, if it fails, somebody's losing. And you're holding the CBDC, but you're already poor. You thought this was going to help you.
Yeah, right.
It can get a lot worse.
So in terms of opportunities that Bitcoin can bring, I believe Bitcoin mining is big in Namibia as well, right?
Well, it's not big. It's starting to pick up. So I remember when I first bought my first 3 miners a couple of years back to try and just see, because so alongside EasySats, I also started the company BTC Mining in Namibia, where what we do with that company is we literally just bring in miners for people. If you tell us what miners do you want to have, we'll bring them, as long as they're Bitcoin miners. I'm not bringing you Ethereum miners. It's called BTC Mining in Namibia. So we'll bring you your miners, and in doing this is also through that arm is how I speak to people in government or people in the mining industry to be like, yo, you do know there's trapped energy. You do know that we can monetize this energy. Like as a mine, I'll give you an example. Let's say you're a copper mine or a diamond mine, whatever. You need a certain amount of electricity to continuously always be in operation, which means that you have more than you need. But that electricity you throw away. You're just wasting it. I know guys that build solar farms in South Africa that are like, wait, you're telling me I have a percentage that on every one of my setups, we lose. We just can't monitor. There's nothing that we can do with that electricity. And you're telling me all I have to do is plug in a Bitcoin miner and I earn Bitcoin from it? I said, yes. That is exactly what you would do in a mining industry. In any industry where you have excess, you can now monetize that excess electricity and then put that Bitcoin, if you want, on your balance sheet. You didn't buy it, but you also didn't waste electricity. Because that energy has to go somewhere.
And so what's the energy source, like the most common in Namibia? Is it solar?
So right now it's solar. Of course, we're a desert country, so we don't have as much hydro as places like, Ethiopia and everything, but we do have a coastline. So it's also, again, about how people implement the technologies that are already out there to garner electricity from what we have on our coastlines, and then to monetize that via things like Bitcoin mining for when other people cannot take off. So buy a first and last resort. That said, there are more people that have been contacting BTC Mining Namibia recently to, hey, I hear about this Bitcoin mining thing. How do I get into it? And That's a longer conversation because for me, Bitcoin mining is mathematics. You need to sit down and you need to work out your costs, your incomes. All of it needs to be down to like really tight.
Yeah.
Because if one of those things move, your cost of electricity changes, everything else gets thrown out. So you need to really work that out really well.
Right. Yeah, great. So you brought some of these devices. What are those?
Yeah, so this is what we call the sovereign key. I've got a couple here, but these are all the test devices that I have here. The actual production ones will be out early next year. So what the sovereign key is, or why I created the sovereign key, was for two reasons. One, I wanted to make a contribution to Bitcoin that wasn't just me, editing README files on GitHub, or which I also really love doing because it says contributor Okin, and I love doing that. But I was like, how do I actually put something out there that can help people? I mean, everybody's got something that they're doing, so look into it. And for me, the sovereign key is important not only because of Bitcoin. We can get to the Bitcoin part, but let me give you an example. Normally what people do is they'll say, okay, I'm going to donate so many computers to a school, okay? And after a couple of years, those computers are out of date or they get stolen or whatever happens, and then new computers have to be bought. Now, a new computer is not cheap. A new laptop is not cheap. And I'm not talking about MacBooks. I'm talking about, buy a new Dell laptop. It's not cheap. Trying to buy 30 Dell laptops or 20 Dell laptops for a school is not cheap, or desktop computers. The sovereign key is a USB. It's a 256 gigabyte USB that you plug into a computer, right? Switch off the computer, plug the sovereign key in. You hit the boot button on most computers, that's F12, and it will come up to the BIOS menu and ask you, how would you like to boot from? Would you like to boot from the hard drive? And one of those options will be a USB. So you boot from the operating system on the USB, and let's say it was a Windows computer. That Windows computer is now a Tails computer, because the operating system on here is Tails. Now, Tails as an operating system is an amnesiastic operating system, meaning once you take this out of that computer, the computer has no clue what you did on it. Tails runs from the RAM of the computer. It doesn't use the other stuff. So nothing that you do on here goes onto the actual hard drive of the computer. It all stays on here. What we did with this was we enabled the persistent storage part, because like I said, every time you take your Tails device out, this also forgets what you did. Everything is wiped on here. But if you activate the persistent storage part like we did and put stuff on there, that will always be on that drive, and you can access it as long as you know the password, like your seed phrase. What we put on there was we put Bales on, and Bales is Bitcoin on Tails, which is a Bitcoin pruned node that is on this device that you can literally use. And then attached to this, Bales is also a wallet that uses Codex 38 and Schnorr signatures, almost like Moon Wallet. That's why Moon Wallet doesn't have a normal seed phrase. It's a different scheme of writing out that phrase or storing them. It's a Schnorr signature type move. But anyway, so it has that attached, but then what I did, so that's how Bales comes. Then of course we did the rest of the things for the sovereign key. What else did we add on? We added on books. One of the books on there is by Josef. Nice. He's one of the authors of the books. We took a lot of Bitcoin, free Bitcoin literature books and put them on there, because if I give you a tool and tell you, okay, go do your research, why not also just give you the books that are for free? And then you can start your research. So we did that, put on the Tuttle Twins video, so that you could show it to your friends or your kids or whatever, just a quick explanation. And then I threw on other tools like Sparrow Wallet is on there right now for version 0.01. That's where we stopped. And then 0.11, we added on some more emulators, coding stuff, programming things, so that you can literally walk around with one of these as your computer. So now, instead of donating 30 computers, you can donate 100 of these to a school. Yeah. Every student, you could say every grade 9 student gets one of these. Now the student is walking around with this. How do I rob you when you have, I know you got a computer bag, so I'm trying to take a computer. But this in your pocket, I don't know what's going on. Now you just need a computer, any outlet. You can use this, again, without internet, plug this into a computer that has no internet access and still do your work on it. You can still work on your graphs and everything that you have saved under persistent storage here is still your computer. So now what we're doing is we're decreasing the way that school kids would have entry-level computers. Well, but better, because the ones that we're going to use next year, they're even way better than these devices that we just have now. And in doing so, we've now made two things possible. Number one, we've put a computer in almost every kid's hand at a fraction of the price of a computer. And number two, we've put Bitcoin self-sovereignty tools onto this that makes it a sovereign key that you can move around with. So now, instead of trying to move with your Bitcoin around in your head, you can do it on a sovereign key. You can also clone this, right? You can this one, you can clone into this one, you can clone into. So now you can have a multitude of sovereign keys around. But of course, your Bitcoin node only updates on one of them. So you'll have to plug them all on to update to the top of the chain every time that you want. Well, it depends on how long you go without using it.
Yeah, very interesting. And it's very recent, right?
Yes, I only released this about beginning of September, mid-September, maybe 3 weeks ago. Yeah, we put out the README file for it. The first 5 pre-sale ones, they went out. I think 3 of them have already been sold. One even went to the United States, where he paid more to import it than it cost for the seed signer. I was like, that's crazy. But he wanted the device. So yeah.
Yeah, and was the seed signer like an inspiration for that?
Sovereign key, sorry, not the seed signer. So many things in my head. Sorry, your question?
Yeah, it feels like a sort of like a seed signer type of thing.
Well, not really. So the other point of doing this was also to do educational tools on it, right? So what I've done with version 1.1, 0.1.1 is put a seed signer emulator on. So you understand how to use it before you even go try and build one. You know, of course, I'm looking at seeing what other type of emulators I can make. Trezor doesn't have one yet, so we'd have to create a Trezor emulator for people to be able to play with and say, oh, this is how I use that. Okay, I understand how to use it. It's not there for you to create seeds off of that you're supposed to use, but it is there to teach you how to do that. And then you can go out and say, okay, I've saved up your money. I know what I'm doing on this device. So now let me go buy the device. You know, so in that, it's always an adding tool. It's to be used in conjunctions with other things.
Yeah. You do a lot of like stuff around Bitcoin. It's you know, it's like these beers and burgers and Bitcoin, like education, Trezor Academy, mining, the sovereignty, and you're going to MC the Adopting Bitcoin conference as well in Cape Town. So like, is there any like main focus for you, or do you like prefer working on like these multiple projects? Because there's some synergy in between them, right?
Correct. For me, it all comes about naturally. You know, my mind is like one of those things, like if you have a browser open with like 20 tabs, I've got that, but I've got 7 desktops like that, and it's just all open. It's like, oh, I forgot about this. Like the sovereign key, I put this away for a year. I was supposed to release this last year. I just didn't get around to it. I didn't get, like, there's the small ATMs that I'm supposed to still be doing, the Bolt cards. Like, there's so many things, the integrations for other people. For me, it's curiosity and making the 13-year-old child within me very happy. Like, that little boy wanted to learn about computers, and we just didn't go that way. We went to do other things, you know? So right now he's jumping up and down like, yes, I know how to use command line, and yes, I can be on GitHub and like help. I can help. I can add value. And I mean, Bitcoin has, besides the monetary aspect, it's allowed me the freedom to realize, hey, there's other things that you can do. You just didn't know you could do it. Just put a little bit of time in, learn how to do it, then go try it out. I mean, I started building web scrapers 3 years ago, and I didn't know how to use command line before 2019. So my first project was, hey, let's find out how to do this. Let's find out how to do that. Let's run a Bitcoin node. Okay, what do we do now that we've run a Bitcoin node? What else can we do with this? Oh, we've learned about pruned nodes. Oh, why can't I put that on a USB? Okay, it's on a USB. What else can we do with that? So it's questioning yourself, and then at the same time saying, let's find out the answer, you know, without having to go let's find out. Let's try it out. Worst that can happen is we fail.
Yeah.
And if we fail, what is failure? It's a lesson in how not to do something. So you didn't fail. You learned how not to do something. Don't do that. Try another way, you know?
Yeah, it's really amazing if you like think about there's more than 1 billion people in Africa, and it feels like this human potential has been locked for a long time.
Right.
Now with the internet, and that's like free exchange of information, and with Bitcoin, it's like the other side of the same coin. It's the free exchange of value, free as in people are free to do that.
Do it, yes.
Yeah, and it just feels like we have so much to unlock now with these technologies like working together. And you feel like it feels like you're like one of the many like gems that can come out of that.
Bless you. So I think to be honest with you, I think what also brings things like this around is reading alternative media and resources from what you've always been exposed to. I remember I'm still not finished with the book, I will admit it, but it's one of my favorite books. That's why I'm reading it so slowly. The Sovereign Individual. I think everybody in the world should read that book because firstly, it was written in 1999. Okay, 98, 99. But what is it about? It's about what the sovereign individual in the technological age would look like, right? And when you look at it through the lens, a lot of what they said in that book is how it happened. Speaking about, okay, not everything, but Bitcoin doesn't care about your race. Bitcoin doesn't care where you come from, who you are, who your parents are. That doesn't matter to a Bitcoin standard. The sovereign individual talks about technology in exactly that way. How technology will allow people to add value without anybody knowing your real name, what your face looks like. Maybe you're an alien. They wouldn't even know because it's the internet. We can do whatever on there. And with the freedom of technology, as you said, the freedom to do, we're able to also have freedom to build, freedom to explore in this technological realm. And that allows you to bring your mind out of what you were taught to what you can discover. And that's very powerful, I think, especially for Africans. We were always dictated to, right? If not, I'm not only just talking about the West, I'm talking about by Africans also. You're dictated to by your parents, the culture of your society, whatever it is. You're dictated to and you grow up in that. And then at some point, you get an infliction and you say, wait, I'm a grown-up now. I can make decisions for myself. And then you start making those decisions. You start thinking for yourself. And one of those proponents for me was Bitcoin because it showed me a completely different economical system than I was taught even when I did my MBA. I didn't know there was a thing called Austrian economics. What are you talking about, bro? Like, okay, I didn't specialize in economics, but still, I did not know. This is something I was supposed to, they should have been able to teach me that in an MBA class, right? But they didn't. They just taught me Keynesian economics that I didn't even know was called that until I started studying Bitcoin. I just knew it as economics. I didn't even know there were other schools of thought of economics. So again, it goes further. Again, of course, people that study economics would know that. But for the average day person, they're going with that same, oh, my teacher said, mom said, dad said, so it must be truth.
Yeah, true.
Not thinking, hey, but mom can also be wrong. She's a human, right? Anybody could get it wrong.
Yeah, and you can really appreciate like the permissionless nature of Bitcoin in that. And as you said, Bitcoin doesn't care about your race. It doesn't care about your age as well. Like one of the most powerful moments in Max DeMarco's The Silent Revolution in Africa is when the kids get to use Bitcoin. Because otherwise, the kids in the township, like they wouldn't have a bank account, like maybe in their life.
And that's the truth.
And now, like they're 10-year-old, they can earn some allowance in Bitcoin, and the whole world basically opens up for them because they have like a global digital means of payment, which is very powerful in these settings.
And here's the other thing that a lot of people don't understand. Like when we were together in Mossel Bay, right? That community is accepting Bitcoin today. The suburbs, right, of the same town are not accepting Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So in about 10 years, who has more purchasing power? The Kasi or the suburbs? It will be the Kasi. They'll have bigger purchasing power than you. And not only that, they'll be able to sell their Bitcoin if they want at an alarming rate. They'll be able to say, hey, I'm selling it the same price as Sailor. I'm not selling it for the same price as that guy over there. Why? Because it's my Bitcoin and you want it. This is a scarce resource I have. You want, pay my price.
Yeah.
And that in itself is very liberating. That the person buying cannot dictate to you. You, as the seller, say, hey, man, I don't care what you want to pay. I told you what the price is. You can go over there. There's other people waiting. That does something. I'll give you an example of empowerment via Bitcoin. Very, very easy. So I spoke at one of these educational events that I throw, and the guy that was working as a car guard outside at the event could hear, because I'm loud, as we all know. And after the event, he comes to me and he says, "Hey, Okin, man, so I heard what you were saying about Bitcoin. I want to know more, but I also want to earn, man. Like, can you, you were telling people how to earn. I also want to earn. Can you show me?" I said, "My brother, no problem. Sit down. Let me show you how. What, you play games on your phone?" "Yes, I play games on my phone." "Okay, cool. What games you play on your phone?" "No, I play, okay, that's fine. Do you know how to play Solitaire?" "Yeah." "Do you know how to play Snake, the game on the 3310? "Yeah." "You know you can get paid in Bitcoin for that." "What do you mean?" "All right, download these 2 games. Yes, THNDR, Thunder Games. Download the games. Start playing. Now, as you earn, you see how you're earning that little bit of Bitcoin. I can't believe that this is actually paying out. Is this real money?" I'm like, "All right, let me show you how it's real." Now, download BitRefill. Okay, now buy yourself mobile airtime with what you earned over there through BitRefill with that Bitcoin. Did it work? "Oh my goodness, I can't believe this worked." Do you know what that man did a week later? I found out randomly. He was playing games, because again, he's sitting in a parking lot, right? And he's watching the cars, but he's playing games on his phone because the building gives him free Wi-Fi. So now he's playing games for free on his phone. He's already going to be playing the games, but he's earning the Bitcoin. What he's doing is that $5 Namibian worth of airtime that he buys, he sells for 7 at a markup to Austin. Because if you don't buy from him and you're looking to buy, you have to walk to a store that's like 20 minutes away. Yeah. Or you can buy from him, buy it from Matthew for $7. So now Matthew just used Bitcoin in a free medium to earn fiat. Mm-hmm. Right? He didn't have that $7, but now he does. Why does he have that? Because he found a way to utilize different technologies to give himself another means of income.
Yeah, you can, like, in these places in the world, you can find people like with real street smarts, and they can figure out the entrepreneurship opportunities.
Correct.
Everywhere.
Correct.
It's amazing.
Because again, as Africans, we've always had to look for a way, try and make a plan to get into a global market, to be able to sell your goods, because there's so many restrictions around you being able to do that outside of your country even, So it makes sense to many people to say, okay, you're saying you'll pay Bitcoin. I'm starting to understand Bitcoin. It has value and it's increasing in value all the time. Its purchasing power is increasing. More and more people wanted 1 + 1 = 2. At some point, you're like, wait. Hey, man, I know that you're eating here at the restaurant. Your bill's $170. I'll pay your bill. Pay me the $170 in Bitcoin.
Right.
Done. You just discovered a way to monetize Bitcoin at your job. Yeah. Even though your boss says them don't take Bitcoin. You paid the bill in cash. You got Bitcoin. Yeah. So it allows you that freedom to say, hey, man, I don't care what we used to do. This is what I'm doing now, right?
Yeah, every time I'm in Africa and discuss Bitcoin with locals, it feels like it's much more fertile ground for Bitcoin to take hold as compared to Europe or the US, because you people don't need convincing that fiat money sucks. That's what I like to say.
Well, that's true. True, and also not true for some people. Remember, they say ignorance is bliss for a reason. If you don't know, and you're not affected by how crappy it is, because you're close to the money printer maybe, then you're not going to care. Even in a place like Namibia, if you've got close proximity to central bankers and you're not really caring that much until you do care. Right? And I'll give you an example of why Bitcoin for me makes perfect sense as legal tender in Namibia. The Namibian dollar is pegged to the South African rand, 1-to-1 from Namibia's side. So if you come from South Africa and you bring 200 South African rand, you can purchase 200 South African rand worth of things. Okay. Yeah. If I take Namibian dollars into South Africa, cannot do it. It is not legal tender in that country. I have to change it into South African rand, and it will not be 1-to-1. No, I'll get less. Right? So in Namibia, we already have 2 legal tenders. I have the Namibian dollar and I have the South African rand. Why don't we just add Bitcoin?
Yeah.
I don't understand it. We already have to. Yeah. It's not like we're devaluing something. You already have to, bro. One is dictating the other one's monetary policies. Sometimes, not all the time. Please don't get me wrong. Right? We do have our own monetary structures, but again, if the saying goes, if South Africa sneezes, Namibia gets a cold, right? Because of how close some of these things are tied, right? Even though they are here and there, there's wiggle room. It's still tied. So why not just add a third currency, which the other two are way less valuable than, way less.
Right. Yeah. So I mentioned you're going to be an MC for the Adopting Bitcoin Cape Town.
Yeah, co-host.
So tell us a little bit more about that event.
Well, it's a very fun event. So I was a speaker at Adopting Bitcoin 2024, and I just loved it. I mean, it's one of those things that is you have to experience to fully get, I think. But to be around that many Bitcoiners and engage in conversations about, of course, Bitcoin, but also just eating right, working out, what is your favorite genre of music, things like this, you start understanding that there's a lot more similarities that you have with people around this world than Bitcoin. Like Bitcoin, yeah, that's how you found each other, but there's a lot of other things there, and that all of a sudden collaboration starts. So from that conference, it was just, talking, myself and Herman, myself and Max, myself and Ricky, all of them. He's like, hey man, what are you guys doing? And then I got a text. Hey, Okin, so would you like to co-host Adopting Bitcoin 2025? I just lost my mind a bit. And I was like, of course, what kind of a question is that? Like when you asked me, Okin, you want to come to Prague? I was like, what kind of a question is that? Yes. Right, give me the invitation letter. Let's do this. But yeah, no, I think Adopting Bitcoin as a conference itself is about, the 2024 one was more about showing the grassroots build up of Bitcoin circular economies and Bitcoin companies within South Africa and Africa globally even to display exactly how these things are being built. Things like Bitcoin Ekasi, how that not only within the township, but at surfer kids, like how those kids are being paid for their attendance to surfing classes above a certain amount, they get some Bitcoin. Now they can either hodl that Bitcoin or go spend that Bitcoin. Most people would have never known that existed if it wasn't for that conference. Things like Trezor Academy, where you and I spoke, Trezor Academy Namibia came out of us meeting at that conference. But this one that's coming, I feel, will be even more integrated. Like, the venue itself is at the waterfront. This time, the last one was at the CTICC Center, which is an actual convention center. So it feels almost like you're going to, sometimes it could be a Bitcoin convention or it could be a convention for like dentists. Right? It's like the place itself lends to that. But when you see where we're hosting the next one, it's so open spaced. It's so living. It's almost like the building is living when you're in there. It's a warehouse, yes, but that warehouse, mind you, is laden at the roof with what? Solar panels. Because they had load shedding. There's no more load shedding in South Africa. But they still have those solar panels. What are they doing with it? Because they can't sell that electricity back into the grid except for cents on the rand. So what they should be doing is plugging in Bitcoin miners and monetizing what is right there. They already have half the equation. So this space has great seating areas, great meeting areas, great workshop areas, free coffee at certain areas. Like, it's going to be one of more of a, you think of it more like, hey, we're having a party than a conference because of the vibe of it is more calm, more chilled, more entertaining from me to you, being able to interact and really absorb info we're getting, not just being in a white walled building all over. No, there's colors, there's stairs we can sit on and quickly chat, and all of that exists because the venue leans into that for you. And of course, the water's right there.
Yeah, it's definitely one of my favorite events, and I'm really looking forward to that one. So it's roughly end of January, and it's Adopting Bitcoin Cape Town, so the listeners can just check it out. I'll be there, you'll be there.
Definitely.
Guys from Bitcoin Ekasi, all like people from all around, like the southern part of Africa, not just South Africa, but people from Namibia, Botswana,
and up north. They will. I've been hearing rumors that some guys from Ethiopia and what are looking to come down as well. Beautiful. And see what's going on. There's talks of guys coming from New York as well. People are looking at how do we, because again, as I said, conferences are breeding grounds for collaborative efforts. You are meeting with these people that you could only speak to online. Now you can actually sit in front of them and say, let me feel your energy. What do you like? Okay, so okay, we can work together. Other people, maybe you like them online, you meet them in real life and you say, no, there's no way.
Yeah.
I don't even like you online anymore, you know? And that is what I think is also very important for people to be able to just, sit around each other and say, man, I didn't know you were this cool.
Yeah, it's very true, very true. I've met so many cool people in there. Yeah, beautiful. I'll be there. So to tie it up, because we're slowly running out of time, we could be here for hours. I would prefer to, but we need to move on somewhere else. So to tie it up, I received a very good question that I should ask you. What are your top 3 life priorities?
Wow, that really is a good question. Top 3 life priorities, in no particular order.
No.
Family. I really love my family. I think everybody at some point realizes they should have done more with their family or for their family, or so family is one of my top priorities. Leaving a real legacy. And what I mean by a real legacy is an actionable legacy, one that helps people, not just helps my name.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is a very important thing. If you cannot be there, but what you've done can still help people. If you could Satoshi this thing, you know what I mean?
Oh, right.
That's one way to look at it, I guess. That's definitely one of my main priorities, is to ensure that I can really, really somehow make a difference. And number 3, I'd say to be better.
Mm-hmm.
So one of my late uncles, Uncle Buddy Windhoek, he once said to me, I went to him, I think it was after I got in my first poetry anthology, because I've been in like 2 or 3 anthologies now over the years. But when I got in my first one, I was like, I'm in a poetry anthology, like they're gonna read this thing, and like my English teacher said I would never be able to be a poet. Look at me now, man, I'm in anthologies. And I went to Uncle Buddy with the book, and I'm like, hey, Uncle Buddy, like he was the father of my best friend, still my best friend. So I go to Uncle Buddy, and he's like, I'm very proud of you, my son. I'm very proud of you. But let me tell you, you can do better still. And it wasn't a thing to say, I'm not proud of you. It was to say, you do know you can still do better than this even. Right. Like, you can keep going. You can create more. You can be better. Like, don't forget, you can be better still.
Yeah. You shouldn't stagnate.
Yeah. Then you asked, why do I do all these projects? Because I can be better still, probably.
Oh, yeah, that's a great motivation.
So, yeah, that's probably my top 3.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for that. So where can people actually connect with you, see what you're doing? Are you on Twitter, Nostr, YouTube? Where do you like to post your stuff?
So if you're looking for me of this age, not 5 years ago, you can find me on Twitter under at Okin. That's Okin _17, but you'll have all of those under the show notes.
Yeah.
You can find me on Nostr under my NPub, or at EasySats, I think is what it's named. I think I'm using the EasySats name there. LinkedIn, that's it. Oh yeah, Instagram, same name as the Twitter. But I don't have Facebook. I deleted that in 2019. I will not be going back ever. You won't find me there. And YouTube, you'll find my podcast, some of the old videos from #FromTheJump. You'll still find that podcast up on certain things. Not on Spotify. I took it off because I read the terms and conditions. You should all do that too. If you have music or anything up on Spotify, please read the terms and conditions. And then find me at conferences, hopefully, man. I'm hoping to go to all of them. I'll be at the one in Kenya in December, and then Adopting Bitcoin in Jan. And then we'll be getting to work and hopefully seeing what other conferences we can attend and spread the knowledge of some of the things happening in Africa and specifically in Namibia.
Beautiful. Thank you for this. It was an amazing hour that we could discuss like what's going on in Namibia and what you are part of. Thank you very much, Okin. And thank you, the listeners, for giving us some of your time.
Thank you so much for having me, Joseph. This was great. I really enjoyed that. Thank you all for listening.
Beautiful. Thank you.